I'm really proud of where we began and proud of being from the 90s. But it's the funniest thing when people go, when, because it's this mixed thing. Obviously, it's really amazing, right? But when people come into the show and they say, "Oh my God, it's so great! It's like being back in the '90s." Think, hang on, the fuck am I like a relic? It's like I'm not a.
No, but
It's-
I always
I
thought,
understand it. I don't mind it, but it's just it
but
always makes
there
me
is
laugh.
something about the '90s, and of course I was my 30s, so like that's what in the '90s. A lot of people, it's their more formative years, but I always thought of your band as sort of like the British answer to grunge, which was the prevailing wind over here for
Yeah,
at least the middle part of the '90s, the Seattle sound.
yeah.
And I felt like you put the British spin on that.
Try
And
to.
it really? Were
Oh,
you
I think
you
so.
influenced by it? You
Yeah, I
liked it?
think there's
Yeah.
a really exciting music. At that time in England, there was what we call Britpop, which is the bands that had made
Wham?
not no after Wham, more Blur, Oasis,
Oh, Blur. I
Blur,
remember
Oasis.
them.
Yeah, they
Oh, Oasis.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, more Beatlesque.
well, just that the Britpop sound. It was like suede, and they're very proud of it. And I didn't mind. I liked it, but what I didn't like about it, for me, I preferred the American sound. It didn't allow for a big performance. I grew up like the Sex Pistols, like post-punk. So I like a little bit of Wham with with the guitars, with music, and so those bands didn't have that. So I like Jane's Addiction, I like Soundgarden, I like
Right.
it was so exciting to me. And what they did as well is that at that time, the rock music for me was I didn't know Judas Priest, Iron Maiden growing up. I knew these big bands, but I didn't know them.
Well, those
And
are
music,
heavy metal bands, aren't they?
yeah, but it was like it was Guns N' Roses, and so all these screaming bands. So it's only when I heard the Pixies were the band that really kind of slapped me in the face to where I could fit in the landscape of music. That was to do, off kilter lyrics, quiet, loud music, quiet, bit loud, but and just talk about how you feel and your complaints, and therefore go against that whole Sunset Strip, Poison, Motley Crue, that style of sort of that. Mine was more
Oh,
sort of more
yeah, I,
counterculture, Ginsberg.
yeah, I certainly don't think of you anything like those bands you
No,
mentioned.
no, but that's what I mean.
Eh,
That those you asked me those American bands, they sort of liberated me to see. They sort of were so inspiring as to how you could make rock music without screaming and being in spandex and with like hairspray. Do you know what I mean? When again, not if you want hairspray. Again, I'm really permissive. I'm from London, so you can do anything you like. We're very open for everyone. So if you want to wear spandex and do your hair, have at it.
No, I feel like the zeitgeist of the late '90s was angst.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure why,
Well,
what
you know what?
what they were, but I mean,
Don't you
like,
think there's been some kind of one thing that has really connected to me is that it's funny because like angst on its own, without sort of some kind of qualification, can be seen as like navel gazing or something like that. But if it's angst, it's existential. You were talking about it earlier. There is an ennui that goes with people and with existence and with trying to get things right and how to get people right, get your job right. It's really hard, and I've found that the when people talk about grunge music, it was really more so much about the lyrics. It was always about the lyrics and about that approach of like being more sensitive, more open. And now it almost has come full circle where mental health is being discussed, suicide rates are astronomical, servicemen and women suicide rates astronomical, gun problems, drug problems, geopolitical issues. It's just, as you know better than anyone, and so it's great to have music that you can get lost to, and someone can, that I made the record. I Beat Loneliness, it's called, and it's this thing that people, I think, have been struggling, and it's just great to provide something that people can listen to and get lost in, and is a form of armor. Because I see music as sort of armor and weaponry, and sort of make you feel good and lift you up, elevate you. When you listen to it right and sort of understand you.
yeah, it's very rare to find a person who doesn't have music of some sort in their life. We all have different
Mhm.
bands,
Of course,
artists,
as
right?
we should.
it's very rare to like a human who like, no, I don't listen to any music, right? I mean,
Right.
it's something. It's almost like a need, as not obviously like to live, like food and
No.
air, but like there is something very primal about. I mean, poets. Part of it is lyrics. Do I have a lot of poems memorized in my life? No, even though I had old enough to have a traditional good education where we learned certain
Yeah.
poems and Shakespeare and so forth. But that doesn't stick in my mind. But there's 1,000 pop songs where I could sing along every line because I've heard it hundreds of times.
Yeah.
And obviously, now I can like a song if the lyrics suck, if the song is great. I can. I can't do it in reverse. If the song isn't good, no amount of great lyrics.
None.
No, you agree with
None.
that?
Fuck yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You got to like the
It's
song.
got to be. Everything's got to be on song.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are umpteen number of songs that where they just are not even trying with the lyrics. I mean, I love the Beatles, as we all do, them more than any. But I mean, they would, I'm sure, be the first to admit some of it is just gobbledygook. I've said it
It
before.
got better and better though for me.
It did. No. At the beginning, it wasn't gobbledygook. It was just what teenagers in 1964 were interested in. Love me do, and I love you, and I'll be true. And they were very young, and those were the songs. And they
Where's
were
Tupac singing "I Want to Hold Your Hand"?
what?
Where's Tupac singing "I Want to Hold Your Hand"? It sort of feels a bit twee if you
I
think.
want to
That.
hold your pussy.
Where is your hand?
Yeah.
By the way, whose hand is that?
Your hand is on my twat. I mean, once you go to wet ass pussy,
That was crazy, wasn't it? And
you
like,
can't. It's how much further can you take it?
well, none. There's nowhere else to go.
No. It's so funny because
But wasn't that incredible that it became it's an anthem for women and younger women.
and
So,
Gavin, how do you interpret the message of wet ass pussy if you had to put it in layman's terms? I mean, it's a poetic, of course, work of art, but wet ass pussy. What is she saying about wet ass pussy?
yeah, it's very.
That we should aspire to it, or that
I think it's the greatest haiku ever, or the third greatest haiku ever.
Well, it would need 14 more syllables. Isn't a haiku 7? I think.
Yeah, it's the
haiku,
shortest haiku ever.
Haiku, I know. I'm not an expert on haiku, but I know it has a lot of rules. I know haiku has a lot of rules. Like exact, and sometimes there are people will say things just in their. Trump does it sometimes, and it is a haiku. It's like a short thing, and it doesn't have to make sense, but it just sounds like a haiku. Somebody turned a whole book of somebody's sayings into haiku. Maybe it was Yogi Berra or somebody like that. But so you're drinking, good. Sometimes rock stars, their later years become so evangelical about the opposite because they have had the experience of being around and doing it too much.
I'm still a lot.
I don't remember.
I'm a lot of fun.
I don't remember.
I'm a lot of fun all the time.
I remember ever reading anything about you and drugs, but maybe I missed it. Like you never seemed to like go overboard with the drug thing like so many musicians do.
There is a connection I'm trying to find, the joke between me and Freddie Mercury, but we both are very clear with our band names.
I always thought that was what it meant, but I didn't want to be impolite. And that was the era when you, of course, had to like sneak in, if you wanted to tell a dirty joke. I mean, the Beatles did it with, in Penny Lane, there's some line there for a fish and finger pie. And I'm not sure what it means, but I know it's dirty. And in Girl, the song Girl, it's on Rubber Soul. The background, the backing vocal, the harmonizing vocal, they're singing tit, 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 tit. It just sounds like one of those things you sing when you're in the chorus, but they're saying tit, tit, tit. And then they did a sound effect of smoking a joint. But, you had to really be clever to fly under the radar of the censors. Right. Now you're just like, my new single's called Wet Ass Pussy. Deal with it.